Good afternoon and welcome to Rubbin Minds. My name is Isabella Adediji. We have a packed show for you today. Thank you for joining in. So, if you're in Nigeria, you realize that the ease of doing business seems to be improving on paper. We hear that right now we've moved from 131st from 145th. But if you speak to the average entrepreneur, you'll find out that they're still dealing with a myriad of challenges, from the fuel scarcity to getting available and constant power for their businesses to policy changes. Today there's a ban on something, tomorrow the ban is changed, and there's so many issues that entrepreneurs have to deal with. And not just entrepreneurs, the average Nigerian has to deal with food inflation. What you could purchase with, say, 10,000 naira last year, you can't purchase that same amount of things this year. So we hope that the show will have conversations that will lead to a call to action to see how we can cope with some of these challenges, but hopefully see a positive change. So joining me via Zoom, I have a digital entrepreneur, Chidi Chaidi Okereke. Welcome to Rubbin Minds. Hello, Chaidi. We also have a social engineering advocate, Joyce Daniels. Welcome to Rubbin Minds. It's so good to have you on the show. I know some of you would have loved to be here, but when you have fuel scarcity, you have the traffic situation, we have to rely on technology. So I'll go straight into the conversation. Let's look at the power issue. Right now, the grid has collapsed 5 times in the space of 6 months. Some Nigerians are even anticipating a 6th collapse. What is the implication of this grid collapses on running a business and even living in Nigeria? I'll start with you, Chaidi.
It's a terrible situation. I mean, you know how in this century we're in, most of life is dependent on power, how much power that we have, how much electricity that we have, and the fact that the grid is collapsing. I mean, power isn't even constant in the first place, but then the fact that the grid is collapsing means it's non-existent, totally non-existent. Now, the bigger challenge is that the main source of power for most Nigerians, which is fuel, generators, diesel, and all that, you can't even access this anymore. So what are we expected to do? Businesses are shutting down. Businesses are reducing the amount of hours they spend running. Businesses are increasing the price of goods and services. And then you think about it, how does the ordinary man survive situations like this? It's terrible all around, and it's not looking positive, because last I checked, the price of diesel was increasing and it's still increasing. We have to reorganize our business a few times. Some of the businesses that we invest in and we run, we've had to reorganize it a few times, because it's a situation where we're losing money and then we're still expected to provide services at how we were providing it before. It's unfortunate, really.
Definitely, productivity has been affected negatively. I know there are some stations that have had to shut down their 24-hour service just because they're unable to get fuel, and diesel, which you mentioned, has increased. I'll read a tweet. We had someone say, if a liter of petrol goes for 165 naira and cooking gas goes for 1,000 naira per kilogram, Nigerians, use your brain. Wouldn't you start thinking of using petrol to cook? But this, looks at alternatives. What is the average Nigerian supposed to do? How are they supposed to live their lives and go about their daily activities? How can we negotiate and really find a way around pricing, subsidy, price control for the good of the average Nigerian? And I'll pose this question to Joyce Daniels.
The only solution that I see right before me is prepare to vote in 2023 and keep hope alive that government change will come with better policies that show care for the people.
I believe we've lost connection with Joyce Daniels. We'll try to get her back. I'll move to Chaidi. Would you want to weigh into maybe price control to ensure that the average man can afford food, can go about their daily activities, can remain productive?
So we've been a subsidy type government for a very long time. Where the government has subsidized some of the social amenities, some of the things that we actually have to survive on. And the reality is that we're getting to a point where that subsidy has cost us more than has made the cost of running government, the cost of governance and everything way more expensive. So while we have to survive, we have to find a way to survive till that time. So yes, we need a government to understand that they have to continue with some of the social investment programs. Some of them, there's a lot of waste in those, so they need to audit those, continue some of them, because again, the poorest of us have to survive, right? But then it is very, very, very critical, like Joyce was saying before she was cut off, it's very, very critical that the 2023 elections, we vote, and we vote right.
I'd like to continue that conversation on voting and the implication it has for the current situation. I believe we have Joyce back. So we're still looking at fuel scarcity. On an ordinary day, two guests will be here in the studio. But again, when you're having a problem to get fuel to move about and also deal with so many other challenges, what is the implication for running a business? What is the implication for even getting around on a daily basis? Joyce, I'll pose that to you.
Thank you, and thank you for bearing with me and the network over here. Implications remain the same. Everything is getting more expensive, a bit more difficult. Hope and pray, and prepare to vote. That's the point I was trying to make earlier, that prepare to vote. Hopefully, a new government will bring better services, better policies that would show care and hope for the people. Right now, we are practically stuck. So we need a way out of this, and each one must have the power within your hand, which is your voter's card, to vote, to change government that would bring new policies.
It's interesting that you bring up voting, because as we count down to the Nigerian general elections in 2023, even though the official campaigning is yet to start, on the internet, there are so many agendas flying around. But as a concerned citizen, what will you say are the top 5 priorities that Nigerians should be looking out for in electing their leaders?
Top 5 priorities. Number 1, someone who listens to people, listens to us, who shows that he or she, well, it's only he right now, who shows that he listens to us, that he cares for what we say, show that he has empathy. Number 2, who can give us some sort of clear pathway to solving the issue of insecurity. Number 3, of course, will be power, and then education. Every other thing, of course, the justice system, to show that law enforcement will be revisited and revamped, refired, to ensure that we have smooth law enforcement. That's as simple as that. So it's, as I have said, every other thing will come after these. If we can't see a clear path, if we can't hear the person talk about real solutions, real-time solutions, possibly with clear plans and milestones, then we would doubt that he knows what he's saying.
Chidi, over to you. What should we be looking out as Nigerians as priority areas that our politicians should be focusing on?
So there's no system that functions well without an economy that works, right? So we need somebody who understands, first of all, okay, so there's this misconception that Nigeria is rich. Nigeria is actually a poor country. But you know what was? We have poor managers of the economy. So we require somebody who understands how to make money, how to spend money well, how to plug all the leaks in waste, and how to ensure that the economy is at the place where businesses can thrive, the private sector can thrive, right? If you create an enabling environment where private sector can thrive, most of these countries that are doing quite well, it's the private sector that is driving them. And we have people. We actually have people. I mean, you can question how educated some of the people we have are. You can question how we can compete with the global world and everything. But the fact still remains that we do have people. We do have human resources that, if we channel them right, if we orient them right, if we create an enabling environment for them to thrive, Nigeria is going to go to the next level. So we need somebody, aside everything that Joyce said, all perfect things, security, somebody who listens and everything. We need somebody who understands how to create wealth, how to make and create wealth, because right now we just have people who know how to waste, and it's unfortunate.
I'll move over to you, Joyce, and I would like to build upon what Chaidi said about creating an enabling environment for the economy to thrive. Now, we've seen policy flip-flops, and that has discouraged a lot of people from getting into certain businesses, becoming entrepreneurs. Some of the youth believe in what we call jackpot, running to other countries. So in terms of policies, what should we be looking at in order to encourage young people to get into businesses, and they can also be encouraged and know that, you know, tomorrow a new policy won't change and drive them out of business?
Very interesting question. I think one of the things that would bring some safety, a sense of safety to a lot of people, is to know that their issues will be addressed quickly and with effect in the courts of law. Justice can be effected very fast. That brings peace to a lot of people. If you think that problems will arise in business and you will not get redress, then you're even more discouraged. Policy-wise, the truth is I've heard it.
It seems to be an issue with the connection with Joyce. We'll try to get her back on as soon as possible. But Chaidi, I mentioned earlier that a lot of people, in fact, the statistics say 8,000 people are applying yearly for different scholarships in the United Kingdom, around the same number looking to make entries into countries that offer permanent residency. We're talking about the United Kingdom, Canada. What can really be done to stem this brain drain and to also encourage a lot of people who have gone out there to study abroad to come back to Nigeria?
Some of the best policies ever. Implementation.
Okay, I believe we have Joyce back now. We'll let you continue with your response to my earlier question. Joyce, over to you. Joyce, are you there? Okay, Chaidi, can we have you? We're looking at the issue of brain drain and what needs to be done to stem that, as well as encourage more people to remain in Nigeria to contribute to national development.
The truth is this, yeah. You know how there's traffic from the mainland to the island every morning, yeah, and then there's traffic from the island to the mainland every evening. People will always migrate towards where the resources are, where the jobs are, where food is, as a natural human inclination. So until Nigeria is positioned to retain the resources that it has, until Nigeria is positioned to keep people healthy, keep people employed, keep money in people's pockets, give them a sense of belonging and everything, people will continue migrating. So we need hard and fast. We need a government that understands that the people are the priority. The people, not their pockets, not their families, not enriching themselves, not their pot bellies in their fat bank accounts. The actual people who run the country, the actual people who belong to the country are the most important people. And it is important that you give them, make sure that there are jobs for them, make sure that the economy is such that they can survive, make sure that the healthcare system works. There are so many people who have very, very little sicknesses that if you go abroad, if you're abroad, it will be easily treated. Yeah, but in Nigeria, it is most likely a death sentence for a lot of them. I've lost people to illnesses that I know that if they were in a better place, they would have survived, right? So if we don't have all those things in place, why you cannot make people stay. The natural inclination is that they will move to where they would survive and they will thrive, and their children will thrive as well.
Do you have a sense that Nigeria is after your life when you think about all the different challenges, from insecurity to food inflation to what you just mentioned about people dying needlessly, to infections that can be easily treated if a functional healthcare system is in place?
By the time you leave the studio now and get to your house, I feel like if you're a religious person, the first thing you do is you thank God for making you survive. But when you live in a system that works, prayers like that are not there anymore, right? The truth is, every day you survive, every day you live in Nigeria, you're surviving. Every day you survive in Nigeria is a day to be grateful for the fact that you're still alive. So yes, in my opinion, and like you said, it feels like Nigeria is trying to take your life. It is either there's no power, it is either you have to queue for fuel, right? It's either you have to face traffic for long periods of time. It's either while you're driving in traffic, somebody's coming to point a gun at you. These are all experiences I've faced in the last 3 months. So yes, this system is trying to kill me.
And Do you get a sense that the government is listening and using the available channels thanks to technology to really communicate the issues, to say, yes, we're listening and these are the solutions? Or do you feel that a lot of these complaints are falling on deaf ears?
I think they're wearing headphones, very, very loud headphones, because if they are listening, then they're actually very stupid. If they are listening, they are very, very stupid. What I also think is they have aides online. They have aides who are, who are listening, who have social listening tools and everything. They have people who can listen. I mean, I'm not talking about the president himself, because it's like the man is aloof. It's like he's unaware of what's happening. It's like, again, I'm not saying he is. But then the fact that we have people who know what is happening, people in government who know what is happening, who know all these things that are happening, and they're not doing anything, means that they just don't care about us. I think that's just the thing. And there are no consequences for the fact that they don't care about us, which is the most dangerous thing, which is why, again, I'll go back to voting, which is why at the ballot next year, let your vote show them that you see that they don't care about us. And that's very important.
So I believe we have Joyce back on the line. I'd like you to address the issue of a listening government. One of the things you said as a priority area is the fact that the government should listen, whoever we elect as Nigerians. So the question is, with technology, or just like Chidi said, with their aids, with social media listening tools, how is the government faring in listening and responding to the challenges?
Faring badly overall nationally. Some states have a few governments here and there. We see like they tend to be listening, but overall, generally across board, it's poor. It's very poor. The representatives of the individuals in office don't even show that they care. As simple as that, I agree with my brother who just spoke.
And now let's look at insecurity. I think that's the major thing, whether it's kidnappings, it's banditry, it's terrorism. Across the country, no geopolitical zone is left out when it comes to the insecurity. What should the government be doing, and is the government doing enough?
The government isn't doing enough because one of the biggest challenges to governance is politics. Right now, the government is focused on running politics for 2023. So it's obvious that some other issues have taken the back burner. And it's not only in Nigeria, it's across the world. Many times, the biggest issue to governance is politics. Can it be fixed? Yes. It just shows a bit more attention, more care, and stop politicizing, throwing, oh, it's this party or that party. There are too many. I feel like I'm tired of talking about the same old issues. We hear the solutions flying around, but to implement remains a problem. So it begs the question, who is benefiting from the insecurity in the country right now? It is very clear some people somewhere are benefiting and are therefore bent on keeping it this way. As simple as that, we need a new government to clear this up.
And very quickly, Chidi, do you agree that the issue of security is being politicized by our leaders?
So the issue of security is like, I think in the view of our leaders, it's kind of like a non-issue because they're not prioritizing it. Yeah. Even
with the budget allocation?
I mean, yeah, the budget allocation and everything is still kind of politicized. It's still getting into some people's pockets and everything. It's not going to the actual reason why those budgets are deployed and everything. It's really, really sad because just a couple of weeks ago we had a train attack. We've had so many insecurity issues just in the southeast, in all political zones and in all geopolitical zones and everything. So if
Chidi, I'll have to stop you there. Thank you very much. We're running out of time. Big thank you to Chidi Okereke, a digital entrepreneur, for joining us on Rubbin Minds, and a social engineering advocate, Joyce Daniels. Thank you for your contributions to the conversation. Rubbin Minds continues after this break. Join us again. Welcome back to Rubbin Minds. We're looking at the hotly anticipated event of 2023 on this segment of the show, and I'm talking about Nigeria Decides 2023. Everywhere across the country and in the diaspora, the presidential elections have been on the mouths of so many Nigerians. But do you get a sense that it's all about the presidency, who's going to occupy the #1 seat in Aso Rock? Yet there are other elections that will take place in 2023. We're looking at State House of Assembly, Federal House of Representatives, the Senate, and I could go on and on to list the different political positions or that we will be electing people into. So looking at voter sensitization, looking at a lot of advocacy to get that PVC. If you joined us earlier on the program, both guests really emphasized on the need to get that voter's card. But really, when we're looking at 2023, what factors will shape the general elections? To discuss with me, I have someone in the studio this time. I'm so happy. We have a political analyst and author, Achike Chude. Welcome to Rubbin Minds. And we also have joining us virtually Ambassador Emmanuel Gabari. Welcome to Rubbin Minds. It's good to see that you were able to. Thank you for joining us virtually. It's good to see that you were able to join us in the studio, speaking about the field challenges and a lot of the issues Nigerians are facing. But I'll go straight into it. Do you feel, and I'm going to pose this question to Achike, that Nigeria still runs a two-party system despite the fact that we'll see many logos on the ballot sheet? Do you think that a third party can emerge in the 2023 elections, or will it be business as usual with the two major parties going head-to-head?
Well, obviously, it's been essentially a two-party system from 1999 to date, apart from the few incursions into political office by a few of the other parties, like the ABGA, for instance. Of course, we used to have the AMPP at a time, and then you had this merger. And then, ever since then, it's been the PDP and then the APC. So those have been the two dominant political parties. And it appeared from the onset of these campaigns for 2023 that the situation was going to remain the same. But from what we have seen, if you're looking at it in terms of the political barometer, in terms of the incursion into the politics of, electoral politics of the Labour Party and then the candidate of the Labour Party, P2B, as well as the NNPP of Kwankwaso in Kano, it's obvious that it's not going to be the usual parade of
I would like to
dominant political parties. So definitely that scenario is going to change. After the 2023 election, Nigeria, the polity will no longer be what it has been all along.
So we're looking at a third and a fourth and a fifth party coming up strong. Ambassador Gabari, do you agree? Do you believe that we're going to move away from this two-party system to actually see the other parties playing a huge role, not just geopolitically, but across the nation in the coming elections?
Yes, thank you very much for having me, first of all. It's a dicey one. I always tell people that with Nigerian politics, even if you have a PhD in political science, it's very hard to predict. We've seen what just happened in Ekiti, and then we've seen what's transpired even within the primaries. And I've always said that the political structures also starts from the primaries, and we're not looking at that, the party primaries, because that is where everything starts and ends. So if you don't have money to lobby delegates, we probably might lose a better candidate because of financial burdens and all of that. So sometimes it's really not about whether we have multiple parties or whether it's APC or PDP. We should be also looking at how do we begin to strengthen for citizens to begin to call for the third force, because sometimes even the third force might not have the kind of structure or the kind of financial weight
that the first two have. Everywhere in the world, you could have multiple parties, but when the chips are down and when push comes to shove or shove comes to push, like they always say, everything is laid on the table. For me, I will also say that I was also looking at, leveraging on the NSAS issue. I was also looking at that by now, young people would have, come together, form a strong, it may not even be a political party, but form a strong force. And by now, we should know that in 2023, these are things young people are projecting and they want to push forward.
So it's safe to say that you're not happy with the quality of the leaders who have come out from the primaries? Are you saying you're expecting maybe a youth leader to have emerged, or do you feel that we're still being presented with the usual? It's still business as usual? And I would like to pose that to Achike.
Well, I think we should be careful, when we talk about, youthful. Obviously, you must have youthful participation in politics because they are the ones that make the world go round. They have the capacity, they have the energy, for positives or for negatives. If you look at some of the things that are going on in the country today, I mean, you are talking about acts of insecurity and violence and so on. It's always the younger generation. And it's always the younger generation that the politicians also use for such purposes. And so the politicians know also how advantageous it will be to curry them, to curry their favors and all of that. But we've also had, the very positive things, achievements that Nigerian youths have been able to do. Of course, in Nigerians are naturally, when it comes to, whenever Nigerians set their mind to doing things, they do it and they do it well. And so our youths have shown that capacity for leadership, and that capacity for commitment. We were not so much confident about our youths all this while until NSAS happened. And then they began to pose not just questions that had to do with police brutality, but political questions. And it was at that moment that we realized that, look, they have been following the trend of things in the country. And ever since, they have remained engaged within the system. And so, but that is not to glorify, youthfulness when it comes to, responsibility, for instance. Some have not been too responsible, because while we had the positives with the NSAS, we also had the negatives that were also used to destabilize the NSAS. And they were the youths, majorly. But don't forget that from 1999 till date, in fact, the first set of political leadership, especially at the level of, governors, were essentially youths. We had one that was 38 years. Most of them were under 45 years, most of them. And so what was the outcome of their various, political engagements in their respective states? Not fantastic. So we should be...
So we should look at this objectively.
We should look at it objectively. Okay. We should be balanced. I think what is, of primary import, really, should be of primary import, is the moral and ethical, disposition of people who aspire to leadership.
Whether they're young or
whether
old,
they're young
and
or
not
old.
just using age as a criteria.
Yes.
I'll move to Ambassador Gabari, and my question looks at the just concluded Ekiti elections. For a lot of people, they've been really impressed with the timeliness of the elections, and even the fact that you could argue that a third force emerged as second position. So looking at Ekiti elections, do you believe that this is what we should expect in the coming elections in terms of our preparation for 2023?
Yes, thank you so much for that. But let me also quickly just chip in from where my last co-present guest said. Development is deliberate. So let's not say whether it's an old person or a young person. Women, youth, young people should be brought into play because we are all citizens. It doesn't matter whether the person is older or younger. We must have deliberate development in saying, okay, this number of things, the youth should be included. This number of things, women should be included. You can't always have people who have been in, come on, people who have been in the political space for 30 years. They grew over time. How come young people can vote and they can't be voted for? Anyway, the one for Ekiti, it's an example, but you also know there have been pockets of accusations, counter-accusations, allegations of vote buying and all of that, which I've always said that it may not stop. Because I go back again to what I said about primaries. We all saw what happened during the delegate thing in quote and all of that. So if that can't stop, if money lobbying can't stop even from the party primaries of who comes out or who emerges at the flag as a flag bearer of the party, how do you want that to stop from the citizenry? You know, but it's a good thing. And like I've always said, even if you have a PhD in political science, with Nigeria, it's something different and dicey. But I must commend INEC and everyone for all of that. But like I said, it's a work in progress, and we need to constantly keep going. But we must not just say, because young people have been given opportunities before, then it's not necessary again. How do you even groom these ones? Even in organizations, there is always leverage for
so there needs to be a deliberate attempt to ensure that young people participate in the political process beyond just voting, but have the chance to aspire to elective positions. Yeah. I'll move to you, Achike. I want us to look at issues-based campaigns. In the 2023 elections, do you see Nigerians having the opportunities to see our political leaders debate these issues? Or, like the guest said, that it will still be about money, it will still be about vote buying and who has the most money to pay for the votes? Yeah, let me look at it. Maybe a little bit of what he said about deliberate, politics and policies and all that. I agree absolutely. But we should also know, if we are talking about deliberate, political action and all that, on whose part? On the part of the youth, on the part of those people who... I think on the part of the political parties to ensure that young people have a fighting chance. But there's a truism that power is never given, power is taken. And so we must have that at the back of our mind. And that was why Obasanjo was admonishing the youths recently, because this country is also theirs. In fact, they have a greater stake in the country because they are younger. They have a longer way to go, so they have much more to lose. And that's why, and you are beginning to see activities, even with regards to the politics of the day, among the youthful population everywhere in an unprecedented and revolutionary manner. You can see what is happening, for instance, on social media. You can see what is happening, with youths everywhere trying to, make the necessary sacrifices to get their PVCs and all of that. So these are deliberate. I want to believe that it's also part of what he's saying. These are deliberate action on the part of the people, and that comes from a recognition that we cannot continue to be what we have been in the past. We cannot continue to be lackadaisical about the things that touches us, the things that touch us most, because they are critical, they are fundamental, not just to our well-being for today, but for tomorrow and for future generations to come. And I think that in itself, is a wonderful thing. And then so the question on issue-based campaigns, are we going to see debates, on issue-based, or is it vote buying? There's no choice, really. And I think Nigerians also, because already the issues have been presented. A few of the candidates are beginning to make their campaigns purely issue-based. Some of them are talking about unemployment. Some of them are talking about energy generation. Some of them are talking about the insecurity in the country, and all of that. So that puts pressure on the usual kind of politics, of just total money. When you have money and you are able to pay your way, to buy your way, then you get into power. So that has forced some of them to begin to respond with regards to their personal or party manifestos and all that. So it is being driven by the youths, because they're asking questions. You have been there in the past. What were you able to do, with regards to electricity, with regards to insecurity, with regards to this and all that? So they have no choice. And again, I think one of the good things that we have seen in the past few years is the elevation of political engagement, either at the level of presidential debates or governorship debates, which your organization, Channels Television, has been very much involved in. So we're going to expect to see more engagement. I would like to move very quickly to Ambassador Gabari, and it's to look at voter apathy. We're still looking at low turnout of voters, and more importantly, there seems to be a concentration on just that #1 seat in Aso Rock. What about voters coming out to vote in the governorship elections, State House of Assembly, even down to the ward, ensuring that they know and they vote for their councillors? What are the issues and how can they be addressed?
I think probably that citizens have lost hope. It's all, if you follow campaign promises, you would think Nigeria will become a heaven, you know. So you come to tell me that, Ambassador, come and vote for me. I will make you the minister, or I will do this for your family. And I do my part. And then 4 years down the lane, you don't do what you promised me. Next time when you come out, naturally, I'll look at you twice and just be like, okay, continue. When you are through, let's know what to do. So I think also that our politicians need to do better. It's not even about the campaigns. It's not about the promises. These things should be evidence-based. People want to wake up every morning and be able to see that there's food for them. There's so much poverty. I go to rural areas where I do researches and where I do a lot of documentaries. You find people who can't eat. There's a whole lot there. So when we even talk about political thuggery and all of that, how do you even want a youth not to be a thug? When he's not eating for a while, the parents are there, they've not done anything, and the politician comes and throws one few thousands of naira. That will sustain. And then people keep saying, don't sell your vote, don't sell your vote. Do you know how much that 5,000 naira will do for a rural woman? You know, so this empathy thing will always be there because these people are in the rural areas. They know all of these things. A politician will take roads that are not good and go for campaigns and tell a market woman that, you know what, we'll build new market for you, we'll do all of this. You tell the same youth that when you get into office, I will make you my special advisor, I will do XYZ for you. And you only use them during elections. And after then, you say, oh, youths are restive, they are not equipped enough, they are not this, they are not that. And then after 4 years, you come back.
And we'll see the same cycle repeat. I'll allow Achike to respond to that in terms of the justification of people looking for support, looking for the ability to feed themselves before they can engage in these issues. How are we going to go beyond bread and butter politics when people have to think about their daily needs and survival coming into the 2023 elections?
Well, there are no two ways about that. It's about expanding the civic space, really, and you don't expand the civic space by engaging in anti-democratic practices. And obviously, the buying and selling of votes is an anti-democratic practice, which the people, you know, on a very wide level are, exposed to, and indulging in. We understand the justifications. You know, it is said that the first law of nature is survival. But then, what is the nature of survival when you talk about somebody who collects 10,000 naira to sell his vote, and then in the next 4 years he loses maybe 100,000 from the same politician because he's going to recover it from him. So we need a lot of voter education, because the reality is that coming into the period where you collected the 10,000 naira, you had not died of starvation. Obviously, you're not going to die of starvation in the next 4 days or 5 days or 6 days. So, I mean, all of these things come. They say there is no gain without pain. So if we are not ready for the pain, then we shouldn't be ready for the gain.
So the question is, are Nigerians ready for the pain?
They must be ready for the pain. That sacrifice must come from them, and that is why the enlightenment must continue. I understand, the reasons behind that. Somebody looks at 10,000 naira, he knows, look, 10,000 naira will solve immediate problems we have today and tomorrow. But we must be able to let them know that you're going to pay a much heavier price for this 10,000 naira that you're collecting. And so we must be able that they must be ready to make that sacrifice for a better tomorrow. Because when they have a better tomorrow, they are not talking about 10,000 naira for a day. They are talking about perhaps 100,000 naira in a week or whatever. So it's a much better life. It's a much better situation for them, but only they can make it possible. Look, INEC, I was in Ekiti State as an observer, and I would say once, I mean, the institutions of state did fairly well. You're talking about INEC, much more improved than what we saw in the, Abuja municipal council election, and in Anambra State, I was in Anambra State, so vastly improved. The conduct of the policemen, with a few deviants, fantastic. About 100% turnout before 9 o'clock. So this was fantastic. The only failure we had was from the political class. They were the ones that engaged and indulged in the things that they had always indulged in, and that is to subvert the political process by inducing voters, which is clearly a crime.
So we'll have to bring the conversation to an end, but I can definitely see the excitement in the 2023 elections coming up. Indeed, we need to still do more when it comes to voter sensitization so that people can see the long game, long run, the implication of selling their votes. I have to say a big thank you to political analyst and author Achike Chude for being our guest today on Rubbin Minds, and also to Ambassador Emmanuel Gabari for joining us virtually on Rubbin Minds. Thank you, and do enjoy the rest of your afternoon. Rubbin Minds will be returning shortly after this break. Join us again. Welcome back to Rubbin Minds, and it's now time for our entertainment segment. Now, growing up, when you are asked what do you want to be when you grow up, usually in Nigeria, it's a doctor, a lawyer, an accountant, an engineer, and maybe a banker, or maybe a policeman or someone in the army. But as technology has evolved now, you'll ask a child today, or from the generation referred to as Gen Z, what they would like to be, and you'll hear things like YouTuber, content creator, TikToker, Instagrammer, digital marketer, and that shows that there is a potential that is being exploited in this industry. So when we look at content creation, we see brands spending so much money to use influencers, skit makers, to ensure that their products and services are at the front of their consumers. So on today's show, we're being joined by a content creator and prankster. And if you've watched his pranks, sometimes you're wondering, is this real or is it scripted? Maybe we'll get the answer today. Welcome to Rubbin Minds, Z Fancy. It's a pleasure to have you here this afternoon.
Good day. Well, I say good afternoon.
Yeah, good afternoon is fine. So let's go straight into it. How did it all start for you? The comedy, the inspiration, and just giving it a go?
Okay, yeah. I was in 9 to 5. Then I remember there was a day I got tired. It was more like it was no more fun for me. So I looked at myself, I said, I want to work for myself, but then I want to do what I love doing best. So while growing up, I was always this troublemaker.
I'm sure you got into trouble for that a lot.
Yeah,
so what made you think that you could make a career out of it and walk away from it?
I really didn't plan it. I just wanted to like have fun while working while doing my 9 to 5. Then we went out one day and we did this scorpion at your back prank. I just told someone, scorpion is at your back. And the next day the person gave this funny reaction. I'm like, oh, okay. I and my team, we went into the house. We were actually scared because the moment the guy pulled his shirt, everybody ran inside. They left only just me and the guy. So I was left to like dissolve everything. Then I went into the office. So when we were previewing the clip, it was really funny. And we were like, you know what? Let's go again. So I kept on doing it. And then my boss said I was being distracted by the stuff. Then he's like, you know what, won't you resign? I said, yeah, sure. So I resigned and I started doing it full time.
So I'm going to go back to what you just said, that story. You go into somebody's house and you're afraid. So aren't there legal implications for some of these pranks? Most times you want to get involved in a production and you're signing off maybe model rights, you're signing off, if anything, indemnities. So what is the legal implication of some of these pranks? Or are they scripted and everybody's fully taken along?
Okay, you know, for pranks, it's always annoying at first. But then if you take your time to like explain it to whomever your victims, if you explain to your victim what the whole stuff is about, and you see everybody start laughing, you know, because it's more like an illusion. You get, but at first it hits you like, why should you be doing this? I'm going to sue you and all.
So has anybody said they're going to sue you, or has said please don't publish this?
A lot of them have actually threatened to sue me, you know, and I've actually gotten beaten.
You've gotten beaten?
Yeah. I've gotten beaten before.
And that hasn't discouraged you or to maybe seek a different way of doing these pranks?
No.
Aren't you scared for your life that one day that beating might result into maybe permanent injury or even death?
Well, even those that beat me up, they actually came to apologize. Because when they realized, someone told them the story, then they came to take actions. Then later on, they saw the video, and then they came to apologize. But then since then, I've tried so hard to like avoid certain type of pranks, you know.
Okay.
Yeah, just for.
So earlier in the conversation, I mentioned the fact that if you're going into a production or maybe even to an event being organized by a brand, usually there's a sign saying that you walk into this value, you're giving up your image rights. So in these things, to avoid, you know, being sued for royalties, do you actually have forms that you give people to sign off so that you're not incriminated in the future, or are you just using their images for free and profiting from it?
Well, it depends on I try as much as possible not to capture like on non-victims. You get, like, I only head for my victims, and whenever I'm done with the whole stuff, I explain to them like I earlier said, and they give me the permission to post it. You know, so if I should have someone in my spot where I don't have the knowledge whereby this person is there, you know, if you come up later in the future, I'll take it down. But then the videos I put out.
So these victims that give you their permission, is it verbal, or is it you sign something?
Actually, some
and
are
what
verbal.
about their rights?
Okay, some are verbal, some are written.
Okay.
You get, so some will say, okay, post this, some they sign. So it all depends. Like, I have the Gold Digger series, and all. Before I step into that, you have to sign, whereby, you know, you're giving me the right to post any of the contents being shot in that particular space. And also,
We're going into the 2023 elections, and a lot of eyes are on content creators like yourself, and they're going to be looking at the kind of skits you're going to be doing in that period. Are there some things that are out of bounds for you, some areas you're never going to go to, or can you prank on anything and everyone?
Well, there are areas you don't prank. There are things you don't like when it comes to politics and some other stuff. You know, pranks are being seen for, are being taken as real. It gets, when you do a prank out there, they be like, okay, this is happening for real. Or this is kind of plain. This is how it should be in the real life, in the real situation, or in the real scenario. But compared to comedy, so for pranks, you have to be careful on the kind of content you put out there. If not, they're just going to take it for like it's real. Just like this news, whatever you guys are saying, people are taking it for real. So that's how pranks are. You get to, but pushing it, trying to commercialize it, for entertainment purpose only. You get, pranks still go into other field like investigation and all of that. You can still call it pranks, but then we don't delve into those sectors.
So finally, I want us to look at collaboration. How open are you to collaboration, and how much has collaboration helped in growing your brand, which is quite huge across the different social media platforms?
For collaboration, I've tried to collaborate with a few of the content creators out there, but you know, for pranks, collaboration will not really fly with all content other celebrities out there. I remember reaching out to a couple of the big stars, and they said no, that they don't want to do. Once it's prank involved, that they are not interested because of brand issues. You get, so it has really hurt us, or let's say, the prank industry. I will say that it has really hurt the prank industry, being that brands shy away from pranks because of the initial approach.
So how are you able to make your money? And the brands that do come to you, how come they're not being pushed away by the pranks?
Those are brands that understand that no publicity is bad publicity, and they get they get maximum results when we do adverts for them. But that aside, I'm actually working on a series now that that's taking pranks from this level to this level.
So pranking is still going to be within your portfolio for a very long time.
Yes, and it's really people are going to love the new series I'm working on.
Okay, can you just tell us in maybe 30 seconds what to expect in that series?
Well, it has everything. It has social experiment. It has a touch of reality show vibes. It has game show vibes. It's just a combo of everything. So, and it's also for entertainment purpose and also for unemployed people. So
okay.
It's a bunch of, I don't want to speak too much. But
okay,
then
thank you for
really
even giving us that tip of the
sure.
iceberg.
Sure.
And that's been our show for today. Thank you, Z Fancy, for being our guest. And And thank you for tuning in to Rubbin Minds. My name is Isabella Adediji. Join us again next week, Sunday, when Ebuka Obiuchinde returns with another show. Do have a great afternoon.